This meeting that you're attending started as a result of a phone conversation, one of many phone conversations, that Jim Brewer and I had one day. As I think I've told you, Susan was with Motorola for 20 years doing as an internal organization development consultant. She and I had the same graduate education, and she had a regular paycheck and I didn't. And so it was kind of a nice arrangement. And then I bought the radio stations, and it was a little more consistent. But she kept coming home and saying to me, you know, technology's changing your business. Yeah, it is. And she said, no, it's really going to change your business. So finally, and she was always telling me about these scenario meetings she was running out of the strategy office at Motorola. And so finally I said, all right, I'll pull together a group of people and you do the scenario thing. That was in 1995. And Jim was one of the people that came to that meeting in 95. And we predicted what happened in 2000. I mean,
96,
close.
yeah, in 2000.
I mean, it was pretty much dead. And one of the reasons that when Steve Dinitz came along and offered me way too much money, that I said adios, is that I was looking at what we had developed in 95, and I said, you know, I think it's time to go home. And so we did. And so now fast forward about 6 or 7 years, and he and I are talking on the phone. He said, you know, that scenario thing we did in 95 was really pretty accurate in terms of where this business is going. Why don't we do that again? And so I said, okay. He and I have both known George Reed since the beginning of time. Him longer than me, but literally from the beginning of time almost. But anyway, so George and I and Jim got together on the phone and said, okay, let's do this. And so George invited a few people, and I invited a few people, and Jim invited a few people, and that was the beginning of this process. So last year, we decided to have more of the format like we're doing right now, which is talk about the scenarios, but bring people in that can talk about with experience, both from a research standpoint and from a practitioner standpoint, what's working, what's not working, where are these drivers going, are they going this direction, that direction. So Jim's son was kind enough last year to come and talk about what they had been doing in Chattanooga. And so when we were playing this year, I said, hey, how about doing an update? And then his health issues intervened, and also his business issues intervened. And so Jim Sr. has agreed to give us an update on what's working, what's not working in Brewer Media in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I don't understand the problem. I'm obviously technically challenged. We can't figure out how to move this over. But we're going to have to.
You have to touch the screen twice.
Mm-hmm. Touch this. So, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Thank all of you for inquiring about Jim Jr. He came through his procedure yesterday just great, and he texted me a couple of hours ago and he said, they sprung me, I'm out. So, yeah, we're thrilled about that. I have to tell you, this is a business ours is a family business. Hell, Stephen used to date my daughter. I wish Tom was still back in the research business. I think we'd all be better off. But a lot of things have happened in the industry that have served to change it. And it is a small family business in a lot of ways. My PowerPoint queen in Chattanooga, who's done some work for Jim over the last few months from time to time on a volunteer basis, was in a terrible accident 2 weeks ago and probably will not return to work. So I was without the help to get PowerPoints done. She was the queen, and the princess has been called on double duty because of the absence of the queen, so I was not able to get as much of it updated as I wanted. But this is a quote that's a favorite of mine, and I think it's from Hemingway or something he wrote as a prologue in Islands in the Stream. And I think our industry still remains at this kind of challenge and fork in the road, if you will. We do need to take the tide when it happens and figure out where we're going to go. Tom's presentation today was very challenging, interesting, and I thought really an excellent example of local adaptation and adapting to market conditions to be successful. I'm going to take a little bit different approach because we've been playing around in this for 5-6 years now, and kind of make it a question and answer thing if I could, and we'll be able to stop. And I think you'll see why I feel that way, because we've gone in far too many directions. I would say, Jim Jr. may disagree, but we've taken a lot of different approaches. Some have worked, some haven't. I'm going to focus, and I think you watched the Seth Godin video yesterday, focusing kind of what we failed in and where I think the problems are in adapting. So we'll take that approach and begin, and we'll see where we get to together. This is a little bit of the BS that we put out, but it's a sort of elevator speech when people come in. And we're trying to do and brand ourselves as a media company, much as Tom is doing in his market. We're locally owned and managed. We've been in the market for 24 years. I think that makes a difference in Chattanooga, Tennessee, because all of our competitors are publicly held companies. We have a fairly broad base of media assets, and I have found that this impresses clients and people in the community. They are fascinated by the fact that you're not just a radio company, which is what they were traditionally used to. You were a newspaper company or you were a radio company. Each property delivers a niche audience, which I think diverges our company some from what Tom does. We've been active in the community. And I was told yesterday by my daughter-in-law, who sort of leads this charge as well as our traffic network, that on one day in April, we're involved in 5 community events where we have speakers or sponsors of a program. I think we have a pretty creative and committed staff. We use Arbitron and Scarborough. I think we're the only Scarborough broadcast subscriber in the market. The qualitative is reasonably important as it comes to the assets that we have. And we're a member of 2 or 3 trade associations. This, in essence, is a listing of the community events and the amount of time and effort that we devote to them. This is a detail of things we were involved with and in promoting last year. I won't go through them. Taking a look at the assets we have, and I didn't bring a laser, Power 94 is a 30-year heritage urban, straight-ahead urban station. Groove is a urban AC. News Talk 95.3 is our talk station, which has been on the air just short of 2 years. ESPN is what it is. The Chattanooga Traffic Network, which is off the far side, is that we have the radio stations and television stations in the community that we provide traffic information for and sell. It's a pretty good and it's a well subscribed. It's been successful and constitutes some 12-13% of our business at this point in time. We have an alternative weekly newspaper. If you're interested, and I think I brought several editions along, published weekly, and while I'm very proud of it from a content standpoint, it has been much more difficult to monetize than we had thought. We have a videographer on staff, and we do some small amount of business in creating videos. We have our Chattanooga Chow, which is a website in which we publish a booklet on dining in Chattanooga 2 times a year that's an adjunct to that website. If Chattanooga has cars, Chattanooga has fun, Chattanooga has travel. The Cars is a local used car, new car search site. Not too much different than Auto Trader. We have a lesser degree of technology than they have, but it is local entirely. Has Fun is an entertainment program. Travel is simply an alliance with, I think it's Travelocity. Lives Green, we have a website, but it serves as the feeder or the platform for a program. This year it's April 7th, Eco Expo. And because of some of the industries in Chattanooga, which Alstom, which is a French company, is located there. They're involved in the production of nuclear turbine production. Volkswagen has a very high profile in sustainability of the environment, and they are just beginning production. Hired their 1,500 employee last week, and will go to 2,000 there. They're producing the Passat for the North American market. BOGO Nougat is the half-price program that we talked about earlier today. Ours is our own site. They can buy online. It works the same as most of them do, or I assume the way that most of them do. I would agree with Tom. I don't believe that there is a sustainable business model, myself personally, for the Groupon program. And Live Social, I believe, has some actual boots on the street in Chattanooga now. Hippie Radio, and I'll be happy to talk with you about this, is a 5th format that we just launched on our HD2 on our 95.3 signal, and we're translating it on a 106.9 translator. I speak with some caution, and I hope this doesn't blow the whole thing, but I believe we really have a hit. It's getting a lot of buzz. Chattanooga Crime is a site that we had that frankly was a wonderful idea to integrate in with Crime Watch and the community, and we thought we had a commitment from the city police and powers that be there to work with us in that sort of thing. Didn't pan out very well. The Lives Green site has been extraordinarily difficult to do content for, and requires probably a different approach than what we've taken to it. I think film at 11 on that site. So the collection of assets we represent, and we use these little characters in our media branding, is, I think, an impressive arsenal to the community and to clients. And I watch the people. We give tours of our facility several times a week to clients. And the constant comment is, I wouldn't have believed that you were doing all of these things here. So I think that's a very positive situation. The difficulty is we have, if we back the slide up, I'm a little afraid to get it out of sync.
Just hit the back button on the...
Okay. There. If you look at all of these things, and each should be a standalone entity, it creates an enormous problem for operations and management. Like everybody else, we have just come through 2009, clawing our way back in 2010. In our case, we moved 2 stations in 2009 and repositioned 2 formats. We launched the Hippie format in early 2011. Those launches and those changes occurred in a, as you all know, an extraordinarily difficult business environment. So just funding and staffing the operations and trying to build them was a difficult situation in that environment. Clearly served as a big impediment. Our newest addition is the Hippie, as I said. This is a HD2 signal that we also translate on 106.9. We have another translator under contract now which will use the HD3 signal on that transmitter. So that will give us a total of 6 oral services in the Chattanooga markets. Perhaps because of the market, the translators work very, very well in that we're able to put them on a mountain. We're putting them on a TV tower. I don't know what the height restrictions are. They're 250 watts, but they perform as well as an A in most markets. So we have actually done fairly well with it, and I'll be happy, and David certainly would have more of the answers than I do. I'm simply trying to figure out how to get them on and what to do with them and what the risks are, and how we can grow our business in that way in the future, and how we can serve niche markets. I'm going to stop here for a second and go off into, well, no, I'll go through the products a little bit. ChattanoogaPulse.com. This is our effort at a newspaper which is similar to what you're doing, except that it isn't intended to be the news. It wasn't intended to be the newspaper of record for the community. It was a lifestyle publication. We have merged them together at this point in time where we have hard news from our news station and we have the lifestyle news. We're working now at separating them. There will be a lifestyle site and a hard news site. And frankly, to be successful in that area, we probably will need to buy a local online newspaper that exists there, which has a pretty good franchise and it owns a significant franchise. There were 261,000 absolute unique visitors to that site in the period from January 2010 through February 2011, with 455,000 page views. So it's a little sticky, but not real sticky. And as I said, combines the content from both of those elements. The alternative weekly newspaper, I'm extraordinarily proud of the product. It does not my demographic. I'm not familiar with music that is played in establishments where the bands don't start until 1 in the morning. And dinner it's about my breakfast time. It has been a great halo in that we've been able to, and I'm fascinated by this from a journalism standpoint from which John could address better, in that we've been able to really take on some initiatives, and I just realized it was here, so I'll point it out. This issue was from February 3rd, The Power of 100 Black Men, and we were able to, by a combination of things on our urban station and through that publication, to really reinvigorate the 100 Black Men community, our organization and our community. And it was a very, very, very positive experience for our staff and for the company. Chattanooga Has Cars has been really a success for us. I will tell you that if you want to get into this business, we have between 400 and 600 uniques a day that log on to the site to do searches. It's a really sticky site if the stats are on there, and I'm having a hard time reading them. Well, 9.7 page views per visit, so it holds the people pretty well. What we're going to be working on next, and we're working on, and the lady who is no longer with us or has been disabled, was working on this, is so that it would integrate into Facebook. I haven't touched on social marketing on all of these, but I will, and that's a pretty major effort for us. The difficulties that exist here, we'll talk about the problems. There is a lot of price competition because the daily in our market, and I suspect in all markets, has gone into a total hissy to try and protect both their display and classified advertising. So the pricing competition got extremely tight for the local search. They had their own local search thing as well. Auto Trader has better technology and add-on services than we do, and that would be very difficult to replicate in a local market. Our opportunities, our benefits are that our search is local, and we can provide media support, and we have more boots on the ground. Shortly after we launched that site, I would guess 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we were really cooking along well. It was a low-cost operation. It was probably making $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month, very low effort, and you know, it looked like we had a real winner, and that it ramped up over about 6 months. So I thought this is going to be a great addition. It's going to be a wonderful profile to have for our company. Then the difficulties of the competing factors came into play, and it was more and more difficult to do. I think that there is a significant opportunity here for broadcasting companies to get into this business. And the reason that I believe that is because we have an enormous asset in our traffic network, because we can promote without getting in the face of our competitors. Chattanooga has cars on 18 radio stations and 3 television stations that we provide traffic information to in the community. So we're not saying, you know, listen to the Brewer media competing stations. We're saying use the ChattanoogaHasCars.com traffic site. And that has made us able to drive that business much more effectively. Chattanooga Has Fun is typically used for movie listings. It gets visits. The stats are 125,000 in a year, absolute uniques with 415,000 pays. So it's doing about not quite 4 page views per visit, which is pretty good. It's used for movie listings, which we can't monetize because we have to have the movies in there, and they know we have to have them in there, and they ain't going to pay us to put it in there. So it becomes a catch-22. The travel site is simply we get a commission when Travelocity books something through our site. It can be a few $100 a month. I don't think we'd do it if we were starting over again, but its cost is about $100 a month. Chattanooga Lives Green, I already talked about. It is the site that supports our Eco Expo, which we really do, frankly, fairly well with financially and as a halo in the community. The Volkswagen director of sustainability from Germany will be the speaker at our luncheon at this event, and we'll have 120 exhibitors, and it will draw a pretty good crowd. I think that this site, if it had the passion of a blog behind it, are committed, I think this one will only work with a really dedicated social media effort, because these people, the people who are going to go to the site, have to be committed, believe in, be concerned about where their pop cans go, be concerned about whether or not their hamburgers come in a styrofoam box. And we have not been able to develop that content effectively. There's our Eco Expo, which I just talked about. Chattanooga Chow was Jim Jr.'s effort at trying to capture this. It's come along, but it isn't there. We paid a company about $10,000 to develop our site because we wanted some unique and special things in it, and really we needed to get on the street with it faster. We have now a competitor to OpenTable, which can book reservations, and we're just trying to bring that technology on for it. May work. This is the piece on Pulse Production, but it's simply we can produce videos for somebody's company if they want it, or to go on their website. I'm going to talk about our Richmond, Indiana station for a minute or two, which is actually a separate company, but I'm the active partner in. Up there, our effort has been to do a video newscast in a digital thing, and I was originally going to there is just a face shot from it. I wasn't able to get them to download a newscast, but I mean, you can log on to kicks96.com, and we produce there a daily 3 or 4 5-minute newscast, which is really done okay. If the disc jockeys are saying we have film of the drug bust last night at 10 o'clock, on Kicks 96 video news, then there are a lot of views. If you don't have that kind of thing, the views are relatively diminished. Next month, we'll be coming out with a player that would look similar to Business Week magazine, which will stack 9 stories. You click the ones that you want to watch, and it archives them, and they play one at a time. It should be easier to monetize in that particular case because we're going to be able to do a pre-roll for each story, and those can rotate. So instead of looking for one sponsor, if you will, for the newscast, we're going to be able to go to more people. In terms of our discussions at this point in time, internally, the social media appears to me to be, as an old man, one of the things that everyone is going to have to be extremely concerned about. I don't know that it makes any difference that it's Twitter, and I just sat in a long meeting last week where probably 2 or 3 or 4 of our more knowledgeable and people who live the life said that Twitter is nothing anymore. It's of no account. You don't need it. Facebook is the thing. And MySpace is just for looking for music or bands or that kind of thing. And hell, 6 years ago, that was all anybody wanted to talk about. So the Facebook thing seems to have the total top of mind in terms of the people who live that lifestyle. And adapting it for the opening of the shopping experience, adapting it, as I think one of John's stations is doing. It's a daily Facebook sort of, not blog, but tease for the next day's show or that morning show. And I think those sorts of initiatives are going to be key and crucial to how we position and use our radio stations. I'll talk about our company a little bit, and then we'll go into the questions and answers. Let me go back. I'll figure it out in a minute. Is there a back to the beginning? Out of sync?
Out of the PowerPoint.
Yeah, okay.
But we can see the whole slide.
Yeah, right. Maybe
There you go, Jim.
There you go.
Hey!
I'll do this again.
Magic.
I want to discuss a couple of things that I think are crucial from my perspective. And some of this information are these opinions I've come about in a funny kind of way, almost through the back door. And I submit them for your consideration. We can discuss them, whatever you would like to do. I probably put HD in my budget for 5 years and finally decided it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it. A year or so ago, someone presented the idea of using your HD signal and put it on a translator, creating another oral service on the analog band or another analog signal. So we began working on the idea and what it would take in terms of equipment. We did it, and I kind of think we have a hit with it. And I've got another one under contract to do now, which would give us 6 oral signals in Chattanooga. The next part of the story comes about as you pick the information up. I honestly believe now, and many of you I'm sure disagree with me, but I believe that HD is going to be a factor. And I believe it's a factor you have to pay attention to. And here's why. The Toyota Entune navigation system that will go into Camrys initially is going to have an HD radio in it. Nobody has to buy it. They don't have to pay for it. It's there. I think it's in without being paid for today in the Ford radios. Am I correct or not?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think you used to have to pay for it, but yeah, if you buy the navigation system, it's there. Volkswagen, which is producing their cars for the U.S. in Chattanooga, and the first ones roll off the line in about 60 days from now. In their navigation or high-end audio system, there will be an HD radio. What General Motors and Chrysler do in their near term, but I don't think they're going to be able to not do it if it exists in the other ones. And these are committed. Jim Hooker was commenting to me that he was in Lakeland and in a Ford car, I believe it was, listening back and forth between XM, the local analog FM station, and the local station in HD, and tells me that in his experience the quality difference was pretty dramatic.
Light years.
The listener is going to experience this, I think, in a car, and they're going to want it. I can relay to you anecdotally that as I'm contemplating whether I'm going to invest the money in the HD and put this format on the air, that I go to a Best Buy or I go to an H.H. Gregg or I go to a Target or I go to a Walmart, and I can't buy an HD radio in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Turns out Best Buy had one, which was a tuner, not a radio. And he said, I can't sell this one. And I said, well, he said, it's the last one and we're not going to have them anymore. That was pretty demoralizing. And I wanted to say, why not? And I realized I would not get an answer that I liked.
That was after you bought the transmitter, right?
Pardon?
That was after you bought the transmitter.
Yeah. After I was committed for the transmitter.
Yeah.
But I personally feel, and I got in a friend's Audi, pretty high number station wagon the other day, and he's a car dealer. And he turns on the radio, and the HD signals are appearing automatically on this radio. When the listener experiences this, and they receive content which they aren't getting on the analog band, I think it's going to be considered as something they might want. And if you today have to order your little TIAC or radio, HD radio from J.D. Crutchfield, you know, the thing's $100. It really sounds pretty good and works pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see if the consumer adopts it. My feeling is that if I can transition with the translators until there is more HD adopted, that it perhaps leads me to a competitive leg up as these automobiles with the radios installed are sold over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. One of the points that I make is that I don't know when, and you address this, but clearly wireless broadband delivery to the car constitutes maybe not the end of the towers, maybe it's the beginning of a whole new relationship that you develop. Everyone here just about, or there are half the people have iPads. When we left this meeting last year, one of the results was, or one of the statements was, will radio be, or is radio an, quote, app, end quote. I put TuneIn Radio on my iPad and I said, oh my God, radio is potentially an app. And I think that app is going to be in the car. I don't know whether it's going to be a plug-in for an iPad or a screen on the Volkswagen dashboard, but there is going to be some presentation of local radio delivered broadband or analog or HD, and the TuneIn Radio app gives you that local application or that local identification. But there are going to be a lot of signals. Yes, John?
You know, that's an interesting point, is you can get over-the-air television for free and it's available on all your televisions, but people choose to get it through the cable. It's going to be interesting as a younger generation grows up, they may not listen to our stations on the radio anymore because they don't use the radio. They use the internet for their delivery of entertainment and information, and they'll be using the radio app. Even though they can get it on the radio, they'll be using the radio app to listen to it over the internet. Because, again, you look at the television model, it's coming, people are paying to get something that you can give them for free.
And it looks better.
And it looks better. But they're paying to get it through the cable because there's other choices on that cable too. And that's what's going to happen in the car radio. The internet portion will have so many choices that you have to be there because that's where the consumer is going to be spending their time, not on the radio part. They're not going to ever push that radio button.
Jim?
I've got a question. What's the cost going to be by the time internet gets into cars? Because you're going to need to obviously access an ISP. What is it going to cost a month to be able to listen to your car?
When Wi-Fi gets out, I think you're going to see the cost go to zero. As cities start to Wi-Fi the network, there won't be a cost, and that's going to take the burden off of the through-the-air transmission, which is one of the reasons why maybe Apple put patents in on AM and FM radios in their phone. It wasn't because they really wanted to offer radio. They wanted to get rid of the capacity that was being drained off of the 3G, 4G services, because the services can't carry all of these. Use it for something else. So if you're going to stream music, we'll get it into your phone.
Cisco just
I think your phone's going to be a wideband, a broadband
But
receiver.
you're not going to have an unlimited data plan anymore. I mean, it costs money.
Well, this year.
No, Verizon
Yeah.
just took away their unlimited
Yeah,
plan.
but, I mean, when does that change? I don't know.
Well,
I still got my unlimited.
they're selling data, they're not selling
Yeah.
voice.
But how expensive? I mean, you're going to have it for your phone anyway.
Video is expensive. I'm just curious what it is going to cost.
Well, let me just say something. We've had this discussion time and time again about we're going to run out of bandwidth. I've heard that discussion from the very beginning of time. We're going to run out of bandwidth. From when we, telephone dial-up. We keep coming up with ways, and television's going to start probably selling their bandwidth back to the government. And technology continues to improve the ability to use the bandwidth we have. Every time we seem like we're hitting our head up against the ceiling, some technology change comes along and opens up a whole new frontier. So I've, again, being on the internet side where people say, and the investors when we're trying to raise money say, aren't you going to run out of bandwidth? I say, every time we've approached that, there's been a solution, and I don't have anything to believe that that's not going to continue to happen. In fact, Cisco just put out a report that said that, the bandwidth and the availability of data transmission is going to increase, like 10 times over the next 15 years. They didn't say where it was going to come from, but they feel that there will be solutions that we'll come up with as we learn to handle data differently and distribute it differently.
And maybe compress it differently. I don't know. Yes.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You said 5 years ago you got on the HD wagon.
No. I kept putting it in my budget, and every year when we would try and get it to meet the test of is a good idea, we'd say no.
Okay, so each time that you went to that well, you didn't see the demand. All right, so here it is today, and you've bought, or you're going to be now going on 2 HD channels and buying. What changed? Where did the demand change?
Two things. First, and what took me there was the ability to put it on a translator, which I didn't realize before. So my HD2 channel is also on 106.9 analog.
So really what you were doing was not really buying HD, you were buying...
I was buying a facilitation.
Class A.
But you're getting it on the translator now. When HD does happen,
If it happens.
then you'll already be there with HD.
Right now, the best use
But-
of HD signal basically is to put onto it as a transfer. It's actually one of the best uses.
Well, yeah.
And it allows you to do something that makes money while you're waiting for the technology, if it's ever going to arrive.
Right.
The question, did you buy the right kind of transmitter to get 10% injection? Because a lot of the
Yes.
problem I now understand is a lot of people who got on the bandwagon early get the notice from the FCC they can increase their injection, and they go,
No can do. The antenna won't do it, the transmission won't do it, the transmitter won't do it. And so they basically have to almost buy it all over again, and now that's giving a lot of them pause, and that's why a lot of people haven't increased the injection.
We just took delivery of ours in early January or late December, and we delayed the order from October till then to get it.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
This little, I don't know if you use this or not. I just wanted to tell you about this because we use this at WI Daily. You're talking about your specific crime page.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the RAID site, RADIS?
No.
Regional Analysis and Information Data Sharing. We have, if you go to widaily.com, under local news, we have a crime locator map, and it's a national database. You put in the zip code, and it shows you every crime that happened in your market. And on a map.
It's a good way to keep your spouse up.
And then, for instance,
We usually just on Thursdays when the paper comes out.
as a matter of fact, that Jim Hooker was involved in an aggravated assault on Lafayette Boulevard, 4.92 miles from the center of town.
Wait, it's still going on.
You know who really loves
Does it have a video?
Oh, and then it's sex offense right next door. Oh my gosh.
You know who really loves that? Realtors.
Realtors love that. But that's a free service, by the way. So
Is it?
if you need info, you email me.
RADAS?
Yeah, but if you go to widaily.com, it'll take you right into the site. You just stroke over the tab. Oh, look, Tennessee's reading us now.
The other issue in closing, because of the time, and Jim can dictate how long the questions go on. We're 2 years ago, when the first of these meetings was held, we were about a month away from launching our news talk station in Chattanooga. And it was originally launched as The Pulse, which was the same name as our weekly alternative. Classic error. The people who read weekly alternatives are not interested in political talk or news of this style. A year later, we were convinced that it was political talk was what we were missing because Glenn Beck was doing okay, or 9 months later. So we hired 2 local political talk people, and that just turned into a lot of maintenance management issues and long TSL and low cum. In any event, we have repositioned now for the second time as a news station. And we are producing 5 hours of local news. We got 7 people doing it. Wow. And I think we're going to get it right. It's one of those things that requires, I guess, a couple of martinis or divine inspiration of some nature. But I became convinced that unless we had a strong franchise in local content, as Tom talks about, but a strong franchise in local content, that we were going to be marginalized in the future, that we had to have some position at any, we had to do whatever we could do to have that position in that franchise. And that's what we're struggling to do. That'll be our challenge this year.
You know, I think it's interesting, your comment about HD radio is that, you know, you may not be able to confidently say that it's going to happen, but the fact that you're kind of hedging your bet and looking at it a little differently, I think is important for the industry as for people to pick up on those signs, because the more people that pick up on those signs, the more people will make a commitment so that when these radios do come out, there's something to listen to. You know, the worst thing to get, like I said, the RDS example, that's the worst example of something that is already there in virtually every car radio, and most broadcasters don't use it.
Don't use it. Yeah.
And so the consumer doesn't use it either. And there it was there, all ready to use. And if that happens to HD radio, when these radios start to come out and there's nothing there to listen to, they'll forget about it, it'll go away. So I think it's encouraging when people like you who have to put your hand in your own pocket and make that investment, start to see that there may be an opportunity there.
Hopefully it'll work. I can tell you this, and I will know more about it, and I told Jim, I thought I would know. Our company has a very good relationship with the Volkswagen people in Chattanooga. I think we will get hands-on use of their device early. And we are going to be involved in a test of the delivery of traffic information to that through HD signals, a 13 kilobit stream that will be on the HD that we're going to transmit on our HD station that will be used to test the delivery to the Volkswagen radios, so our navigation systems in reality there. So I think we'll get to see early on what kind of experience the consumer is likely to have and how you're going to plug your iPhone in or your iPad or whatever it happens to be to get the Verizon MiFi, is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. In to see how it's going to work. I think it'll be fascinating. I don't know whether it's the answer, but it is an alternative that's going to exist. And I'm getting an oral signal a lot cheaper than I can, even today's world, buy another station in Chattanooga. But I can't own another one.
Right, yeah.
And I can't own this.